So proud of you.
I want to thank you all for coming today. If you don't mind, memorial service, if you please put your phones on silent, appreciate that. And if you can limit your side conversations, we're actually recording this, and so the sound travels to the recording. I'm going to use my notes because it's actually rather emotional for me. It's been a long process to get to where we're at now, over 5 years long. So we're here today to dedicate this fallen officer memorial sign to Gary Levon Sumpter. Selflessly died in the line of duty while saving a fellow officer on March 15th, 1969. Officer Sumpter was 31 years old. At the time of his death, was survived by his wife and his children, Julia and Michael. I would like to thank Representative Gomberg and Senator Anderson, as well as the governor's office and Toledo City Mayor Rod Cross for their assistance in it. It was an act of Congress to get that sign, and it shouldn't have taken that long or that much effort to get that sign for him. At this time, I'd like to present Julia Sumpter.
Welcome, everybody. I'm super honored to be here, and I'm glad that you are all here to share this with us. My dad wasn't just my dad. My dad was a son. My dad was a brother. My dad was a friend. My dad was a colleague. But all I ever knew was just my dad. I was 7 years old when he died. So encased in my brain, he will always be, the big dad, and I will always be 7. But I wanted to share a few memories of him so that you can get a sense of who he was through my eyes. First and foremost, I remember that my dad was very funny and his brothers were very funny. So I think that's a Sumpter trait that they led with. And humor has definitely changed how I see the world. So I think that's a trait that we have passed on in our family. My dad called soy sauce bug juice. He had us believing that it was made of real bugs. So imagine my surprise when I went out and ate potato bugs and they did not taste like soy sauce. If we fussed about going to bed, my dad would scoop us up and he would tell us that the crocopotamus or the belly biting bug was going to get us, and he would blow raspberries on our stomachs and that would get us to bed. He nicknamed me Hooper. He nicknamed my brother Pog. We have no idea why. He told us that dried apricots were little baby ears. And he told us that canned peaches were goldfish, and we thought they were delicious. If we got in trouble during the day, my mom would usually do the wait till your dad gets home. And when my dad got home, he would take us into the bedroom and he would take the belt off and he would shut the door and he would whip the bed and he would tell us to scream and cry because he did not ever hit us. He taught us respect. He taught us integrity, but he did not hit us. After being put to bed, my dad would often wait for one of us kids to fall asleep, and then he'd take the awake one, let them get back up, eat cereal, and watch TV with him. And I have very distinct memories of watching the old Adam West Batman and Star Trek with my dad, thinking I was so grown up to watch such grown up shows. He taught us how to make fart sounds with our armpits. And that wasn't a good skill to take to school, but we were very proud of it. And my dad had a iguana named Rigpoot Gallywampus. And Rigpoot would get out and my mom would call. And if my dad could not come from work, he would have one of us kids walk home from school in the middle of the day to get Rigpoot Gallywampus back in the cage. My dad was a dog lover and he had a very attached dog, German short hair named Skipper. And when he had to put Skipper down, he walked him into the woods and we waited. And when my dad came back, he came back without a shirt on because he had buried Skipper in his brand new shirt, which I thought was a very tender gesture. My dad loved the outdoors. We did a lot of camping and it was very rustic camping in the Silver Lake, Lakewood area. He loved to hunt. He loved to be outside. He loved the woods. And we often did drives on Sundays to just explore with no idea where we were going. When you're small, your dad does seem larger than life. And I know he wasn't a perfect parent, but I also knew that he left me many fond memories. Looking at him now from my grown-up perspective, I'm proud that he was a man who wanted to protect and serve. And I am most taken that he chose to provide safety and protection to the community that he lived in. I have one of his police pads that he would write down things that happened on his calls. Most of them look very ordinary, and actually some look very mundane. But when he left for work that day, the day that he lost his life, I don't think he could have imagined the tragedy that would befall him. We all know that when an officer leaves for their shift, there's always the inherent risk that they might not return. And yet most officers perform their duties believing that they will be fine. That day, my dad was not fine. After that day, my family was not fine. The fallout of such a tragedy has such a large ripple effect to both the community and our family. Please allow me to introduce the people that have been impacted by that fallout. Besides myself, I have my daughters. This is Anna. This is Mara. This would be my father's grandson. This is Joe and his family. This is, excuse me, Jade and Chelsea. Jade and Chelsea. This would be my father's sister-in-law. She was married to my dad's brother for a lot of years. This is Jeanette. This is my grandson. This is Oliver and my husband, Rocky. Today, we recognize my dad, and I'm so appreciative of all the hard work. I thank everybody that's had a hand in this. As Chief Pace said, it was a long process that I didn't even know had been started. So the appreciation that I feel in my heart as I speak on behalf of my family, we're grateful and appreciate being involved in this honor. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Sam from the Senator Anderson's office. Let's see.
Toledo police officer, Patrolman Gary Sumpter went to work on the morning of March 15th, 1969, not knowing that he would never return home. Recognizing our officers with a sign on a highway is the minimum we should be doing for real heroes of our communities. We all want a safe community, and police officers are the ones who put their lives on the line every day to ensure it. I hope that the family will enjoy seeing his name on the highway, as I know I and many others will as they drive by it. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce the city mayor, Ross.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you all made it. Yeah. First off, I'm going to read remarks from State Representative David Gomberg, who could not be here today. To the Sumpter family and the city of Toledo, it is with deep regret that I could not attend today's dedication for Officer Gary Sumpter. While I have been pulled away from the district to reconvene with my colleagues in the legislature today, I would be remiss if I did not provide remarks commemorating the life-saving actions that have cemented Officer Sumpter's legacy as a true hero. I did not personally know Officer Sumpter, but by all accounts, he was a pillar of his community and a model that all Oregonians should aspire to be. During his tenure in the Sweet Home Police Department prior to his service in Toledo, Officer Sumpter was described by his colleague, Sergeant Richard Bowman, as one of those seemingly rare types of individuals that add to, both socially and professionally, any community. In his eulogy, Officer Sumpter was described as the personification of what the profession would endeavor ultimately to achieve. And in the local newspaper, Toledo's then mayor, Rose, described Officer Sumpter as the last one to classify himself as any type of hero, further stating he was just doing his job, a job he got darn little pay for. Both as a police officer and a civilian, Officer Sumpter was a one-of-a-kind member of whichever community he found himself a part of. And while he may not have considered himself a hero, Officer Gary Levon Sumpter should be undoubtedly be remembered as such. Today's dedication represents a step forward in ensuring that heroes like Officer Sumpter, the altruists who comprise the backbone of our civil society, are not forgotten. Officer Sumpter is a hero. His legacy will endure. Sincerely, David Gomberg, Oregon House District 10. Next, I'm going to read Mayor Neil Rose's statement from his funeral back in 1969. Mayor Neil Rose: I will never understand why we have a tragedy to bring to light. That thin blue line is the only separation we have from utter chaos. All too many times these men are damned. Very seldom they are praised. But every day they face odds that would cause the average man to turn and seek safety. Officer Sumpter could have turned his back on this call for help. But we don't want our thin blue line made up of that type of person, God help us if it ever is. Officer Sumpter's actions undoubtedly saved the life of at least one of his fellow officers, but he would be the last one to classify himself as any type of hero. He was just doing a job he got little pay for. I'll close with my remarks. First of all, I want to apologize not only to the officer, to the family of Officer Gary Sumpter, but also to our entire Toledo Police Department, past and present, for the egregious amount of time this dedication took to happen. Toledo Police Department Chief Michael Pace has been tireless in his efforts to have Officer Sumpter recognized since his appointment as chief a little over 5 years ago. It has been my honor to help in these endeavors as they come to fruition here today. Officer Sumpter epitomizes the duty, honor, and noble sacrifice we admire and strive for in our law enforcement community. They are the ones willing to stand as a shield for us between chaos and order, anarchy and civility, and most of all, destruction and life. Officer Sumpter stepped up on that day, March 15, 1969, to protect a fellow officer and our communities from a dangerous offender. Finally, today, December 10th, 2024, 55 years later, we officially recognize and honor his and his family's sacrifice for all of us. May today help to bring a hero to light and a family some closure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think it's appropriate to say exactly what happened that night. On March 15th, 1969, the suspect was seen speeding, traveling westbound on Highway 20 through Newport. The suspect drove in front of Oregon State Trooper, Durer's patrol car, and Newport police officer Ewald's patrol car at a high rate of speed. The suspect then turned around and headed eastbound on Highway 20. Trooper Durer and Officer Ewald attempted to pull over the car, but the suspect continued on a high-speed pursuit was initiated. Officer Ewald rated for assistance from Toledo Officer Gary Sumpter at 11:15 p.m. The pursuit traveled past the West Junction, then the suspect made a U-turn on the highway and traveled westbound on Highway 20. Officer Sumpter was sitting at the West Junction. The suspect saw Officer Sumpter and traveled north on Highway 229 and was soon second in pursuit. In an attempt to get the driver to pull over, Trooper Durer drove alongside of the car and motioned to pull over. The suspect did not and continued past Siletz. At approximately milepost 15 on Highway 229, the suspect gained a considerable distance between him and the pursuing officer. He rounded a blind corner, parked his car perpendicular across the highway, and got out with his .30-06 and opened fire on the approaching Trooper Durer. A bullet from the .30-06 hit Trooper Durer's car, split in half, one half traveling through the windshield and the other going into the air filter. Trooper Durer quickly exited his vehicle and ran to the rear driver's side of the patrol car for cover. He peeked out from behind the cover and was shot in the face by the suspect. Trooper Durer Then noticed that his car was not in park and started rolling forward. Officer Sumpter then arrived on scene and started shooting at the suspect, providing Trooper Durr cover so that he can go to back of Officer Sumpter's vehicle. While he's providing cover, the suspect shot through Officer Sumpter's patrol car door, and it traveled into his badge and into his heart. Officer Sumpter was able to retreat back to where Trooper Durr was, and then the suspect got back into his car and drove northbound on Highway 229 and went past a police blockade, and then just shy of 101, he got out of his vehicle and was approached by the approaching officers, pointed the rifle at him, and then he turned the rifle on himself, succumbed to his own injuries. At this time, I'd like to read Chief Nozak's eulogy. I think it's very fitting. Courage, integrity, dignity, knowledge. The above words help to make and describe a professional police officer. They certainly apply to Toledo Police Officer Gary Sumpter. He not only lived up to the code of ethics for law enforcement officers, but was also the personification of that profession, would endure ultimately to achieve. We shall remember him as an excellent and outstanding officer who gave himself with tirelessly unselfish devotion to his duty, his fellow man, community, and country. Always fair, honest, polite, kind, considerate. Gary was heard by all of us many times to make the comment, just mark it up to service to the community. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any public comment. Anybody that would like to say anything in regards to Gary Sumpter. Officer Sumpter, you will always be part of the legacy of the Toledo Police Department. Your demeanor, strength, integrity, grit, and compassion is the gold bar that we all strive to achieve. Every new police department employee reads your file and understands your devotion and sacrifice. You will never be forgotten. At this time, I'd like all the officers that are wearing uniform to stand, please. At attention as the trooper here, part of the honor guard, presents the flag. So. To the city, the state. It's a time-honored tradition to provide a last call to those officers who have fallen in the line of duty. Out of respect for Officer Sumpter and his family, I would ask everyone to please be quiet as you perform this tradition. Officers, if you could turn and chant your radios to law 1 and make sure audible. It'll take a minute, sorry. I'd like to present, I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties, but I'd like to present,
It's not going
Katie,
out over the radio today.
Katie Pimentel, our dispatch supervisor, will be giving last call. You guys can sit down.
All units, please stand by for our broadcast. Toledo dispatch, Salem dispatch, please stand by for our final call. Toledo dispatch to Officer Sumpter. Toledo dispatch to Officer Sumpter. Toledo dispatch, no response. This is the last and final call for Toledo Police Officer Gary LeVon Sumpter. Mark it up to service to my community. This was a phrase Officer Sumpter was well known for. On March 15th, 1969, Officer Sumpter paid the ultimate sacrifice. A fatal gunshot wound from a pursuit suspect claimed his life while he was providing cover and attempting to save the life of a fellow officer. Gone but not forgotten. We are here today to proudly honor your commitment and dedication and to recognize your achievements and accomplishments. Today and moving forward, we will continue to embrace your family as our own. We have no doubt that you have been watching over your fellow brothers and sisters. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. May your honor live on in all of us and your memory remain strong. Rest in peace, brother. You will forever be our legacy. Officer Gary Sumpter is out of service. End of watch, March 15th, 1969. Dispatch clear at 12:23.
Thank you again for all coming. This concludes our memorial service. I've got some keychains, some pins there of the sign there. The sign will be posted along Highway 229 sometime within the next 3 or 4 weeks. I want it close to Highway 20 so people can see it, but it's up to the engineers and then where they place it, where ODOT places it. Again, Officer Sumpter perished at milepost 15. And then we went ahead and put some flowers at his mausoleum in Newport. If you want to stop and say hello. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.